So I recently got my diagnosis. And of course, I've already put out a video stating that I did. Can't remember if I mentioned all of my diagnoses. One thing I was deeply concerned about was the possibility of narcissistic personality disorder. Fortunately, no. I mean, I put in extra effort to get that diagnosis. Because if you do that and you don't, you don't. Anyway, no, I'm not a narcissist, which is cool. Severe depression, which, judging by the symptoms that gave me that diagnosis, it's been going on for a long time. Some of it before I was married, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, severe depression, CPTSD, for those who don't know what it is. It's PTSD, but it's unlike normal PTSD where it's caused by 1 or 2 or 3 whatever traumatic events. CPTSD is chronic post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it's caused by continuous, non-stop exposure to trauma. That goes back into childhood. And unfortunately, all the way up to now. And yes, it was confirmed by my therapist that my divorce is a contributing factor. Yay. Anyway. So, there are those. Obviously, ADHD, I was diagnosed with that in, I think, 94. Andrews Center in Tyler, Texas. Which I still need to go get my paperwork for that. I might need it for the judge in the divorce, because I suspect I'm going to be railroaded. That's another story. I don't want to talk too much about that. See if I can remember all the diagnoses. I'm not bipolar. Okay. I'm not autistic. Okay. I actually expected that one to be a thing. But I'm not. However, borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder in behavior is very similar to narcissistic personality disorder. Reason for the behaviors are different, and there are a lot of behaviors in BPD that don't exist with NPD, and vice versa. Like somebody with BPD, they will sacrifice themselves to death for others. People with narcissism won't really do that. They'll sacrifice until they can no longer justify the reward for the sacrifice. People with BPD will go and go and go until there's nothing left. And then when there's nothing left, you'll never get them to do that again. The biggest difference, honestly, between narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, the drivers. With narcissism, it's about making themselves feel better about themselves. In the end, it's about their ego, because they feel, or rather, they're afraid of being inferior to the people around them. So they have to make themselves feel superior in some way. With some, like a covert narcissist, it's about getting their attention as a victim. Then you get the grandiose narcissist, which it's more about making themselves feel better, make themselves feel like they are superior to everyone around them, so they don't have to feel like they're not. With BPD, borderline personality disorder, it is driven by fear, specifically fear of abandonment, fear of people hating you, fear of losing love or not receiving it in the first place. It's driven by fear. Literally fear of not getting basic emotional needs met. And yeah, I can feel that. There's nothing like watching yourself absolutely lose your crap because you do feel like you have unmet needs, and then hating yourself afterward. But this is part of changing myself. Now, I don't know if a personality disorder can actually be cured, because it's not something you're born with. It's something that's caused by trauma in life. Usually neglect or wrong kind of stimuli. But the key to improving yourself, whether it's curable or not, is to observe yourself objectively. For those of you who don't really understand what that means, it's you have to look at yourself as though you're another person looking at your behavior. And not just your behavior, but your triggers, your responses, your mindset when it happens. Because your triggers, they're usually caused by, they're there because of the trauma. But your mindset, when you're triggered, where your mind goes, where it was before it started, where it ends up afterward, all of that is important. And you have to look at that and say, okay, well, this is the pattern that I'm seeing. Now I have to make a new pattern. You have to literally become super self-aware, knowing exactly why something is happening, and being able to calm yourself, being able to, for lack of a better word, control yourself during those events. And for me, that's especially hard because I'm not just borderline. I'm also ADHD. People with ADHD have impulse control issues. Now, I've learned techniques that allow me to defeat a lot of that, but this is going to be a lifelong struggle. I'm always going to find new things that I have to learn. And I'm probably going to have to redo a lot of my techniques as I go on, because the thing about the brain is the brain adapts to what's being done to it, including the things that you do intentionally, like creating new habits and new awareness techniques during various episodes, whether it be massively depressive episodes, rage episodes, or whatever, okay? And your brain will rewire itself, firstly, to automatically go to that place that you created so you can control yourself. But it will also rewire itself so that those techniques may not be quite as effective as they were before. So you have to learn new techniques to sort of, not necessarily supplement, but to bolster the techniques you were already using. Because the techniques you were already using, they do still work, but you'll find them working less effectively than before. And it's almost like stepping over a threshold. It's working, it's perfect, everything's good, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I missed a step. What happened? You might have gotten complacent to some degree, but a lot of that is because your brain has rewired itself to adapt to the work you're doing. And it's going to be lifelong. It'll never stop. I will always have to do these things. So in anything, whether it's a personality disorder, condition you were born with, or even a skill. Self-awareness is a key. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing as it's happening. So you can say, okay, that's not what's going on. Or in some cases, that is what's going on. But what happens next matters more than what happened to start it. These aren't things that necessarily have been told to me by my therapist. And, you know, I'll probably have an opportunity to discuss all this with my therapist. My therapist does actually watch my videos, and I'm glad for that, because that gives her an opportunity to see what I'm like when I'm not in the office. And that's important because, and I kind of feel guilty for this, but it's like something that I'm still working on. When you go into a therapy setting and you're used to wearing a mask in social situations, you don't think about it. You just put the mask up. It's there. The laughing, the smiling, acting like everything's okay. It's just there. You don't control it. And I kind of put that mask up for these videos, and a lot of that is for the sake of professionalism. Yeah, okay, I don't get paid for these videos. I wouldn't mind it. I don't get paid for these videos. Okay? But I got a lot of people, or rather, I've got a huge potential audience. I mean, there are 8 billion people on this earth. Internet all over the world. So I have a huge potential audience. And regardless of how I feel, I need to conduct myself in a professional manner. Otherwise, a handful of negative things can happen. Unfortunately, that's also my mindset whenever I go into my therapy sessions. So anyway, I'm not wearing quite as many masks on these videos as I do when I'm in my therapy sessions or in normal social situations. I don't know how many people I'm familiar with know that I'm putting on a mask. I'm hoping my therapist knows. And yes, my therapist is a licensed counselor, so I get all the benefits of that. I'm really hoping that she knows. That way she can kind of coach me into getting rid of that. Because, I mean, let's say I'm a veteran of masking. I'm 39 years old. The first time I ever had to put on a mask that I can remember was 6 years old in kindergarten. Because I discovered real fast how unwilling to accept oddness people really are. And this was from other 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and 6-year-olds. Weird thing about public schools, I don't know if it's just Texas or all of America, but if you're born after the school year starts, then whenever it comes time for you to start kindergarten, about 5 years old, you have to wait the next year. You can't start 2 months into the school year. Or you can't start before you turn 5, even though it's like 2 months away. Because somehow that 2 months makes an enormous difference on your capability to learn A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, whatever. It's another point of contention between me and public schools, but that's not what all this is about. I'm going the wrong direction. Yes, I'm in the woods, but there's still a right and wrong direction. Don't ask. Anyway, yeah, so the first time I remember putting on a mask, I was 6 years old. And that mask continued to be reinforced more and more heavily as I got older. everything from my peers treating me like this absolutely disgusting beast. I'd use the water fountain in the hallway, and a lot of my classmates would say things like, "Ew, I'm never using that again." And you're talking about like a 7-year-old at this point. You're having to hear that. I had actually forgotten about that until an old friend from school, who, until she deems necessary or wishes otherwise, will remain nameless. But she reminded me of that some years ago. And man, it was like it happened all over again. I'd forgotten about it. And I hate that about, I don't know if it was a repressed memory so much as I just forgot. Because, ADHD and memories don't really go well together. But I'd actually forgotten about it. And then when she reminded me that it happened, it was as devastating as when it happened. Sorry, nostalgia. Actually, more like good bad memories, or bad good memories, however you want to look at it. Walking by the old campsite where I used to camp with my wife and kids. Anyway, yeah, so there was that. And I didn't realize until a couple of years ago that this wasn't normal. But at 6 years old in kindergarten, I had always dreamt of having a wife and kids. My own house. I wanted a family. Imagine hearing that from a 6-year-old boy. Of course, I found out not too long ago why my mind was like that. It wasn't because of the ADHD or the borderline. It was because of something that happened when I was 2 years old. It didn't happen to me, but I watched it happen, and it was terrible. Because of who it happened to, I'm not going to, and of course because of people involved otherwise, I'm not going to talk about it on here until I'm given permission to do so. So anyway, I watched something happen that I shouldn't have been able to see, and should never have happened in the first place. And that colored my perception of love. But yeah, so it was pretty early on that I started telling girls that I like them. All of us boys have done that. I like you. Will you be my girlfriend? Of course, I never got to the whole "will you be my girlfriend" part. As soon as the words "like you" left my mouth, there's a chorus of laughter. And of course, there was the odd "ew," and that's disgusting. And of course, that could be attributed to, the girls were girls. We were kids. I was 6, they were 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then into my teenage years, I had my first legitimate girlfriend at 15. Which you're like, some people might like, that's not so bad. A lot of parents won't let their kids date until they're 16, 17, whatever, and that's fine, but that's not what happened. Which, to be totally honest, I wasn't supposed to be dating till I was 16. Anyway, girls didn't like me. Nobody liked me. Well, that's an exaggeration. I can't say nobody liked me. I was hard to deal with. Well, I am still hard to deal with. I'm a little easier than I was then. But girls didn't like me. And the guys that I knew that, I wouldn't have minded them being my friend. Some of them only pretended to be my friend. Some of them were my friends. And I drove them away because I am a difficult person. Anyway, yeah, you can imagine how that would mess up somebody's perception of life in general. I grew to the point where I actually hated women. And it got worse as I got older. My first girlfriend broke up with me because she said that I wasn't bad enough for her. She needed a bad boy. Which I'm sure you guys have heard that. And quite frankly, I don't actually think that was the reason. I really think she found somebody she liked more. Whatever. Two of my girlfriends only dated me because I had a house. One of them openly stated it was because I had a car. When I lost my car, I lost my girlfriend. One of them dated me because she just wanted somebody to talk to. I was already her friend. Quite frankly, I think I might have just been a little too persistent and she just wanted me to leave her alone. Just whole life of difficult relationships. Some of them were my fault. Some of them weren't. But I'm trying to remember why in the world I got off on that rabbit trail. Probably talking about the PTSD thing. Anyway, relationship stuff was always difficult, and that only lended to a part of, or contributed rather, to a part of the whole traumatic experience thing. A lot more that went on in my life. But, man, I really wish I had a real memory. There was actually a point to all that story, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe I'll remember after I watch this video again. Anyway, back to the diagnoses. CPTSD. Basically a whole life of pretty much non-stop traumatic events. I think that might have been the point of what I was saying. I don't remember. And even to this point, I can understand why I might have fears of abandonment and loss. Being robbed of or denied love and affection. Wish I had grown up in a healthier life, but I didn't. Trying to change my outlook. A lot of that is going to require me looking at the things that happened in my past and not trying to understand why they happened. But that they happened and they're not happening anymore. Unfortunately, some of that is happening right now because I'm in a divorce. This is a real difficult time for me. I mean, of course, divorce is difficult, but borderline personality disorder, fears of abandonment, lack of affection and love, having it withdrawn from you or denied it in the first place. That's the definition of divorce. You are losing the person you love. You are being denied love and affection by them. and you are quite literally being abandoned. Even though I have mentally come to terms with what's happening, I won't really go into the elements that allowed me to come to those terms for concern of slander, defamation lawsuits that have already been threatened against me. I was actually already told, not by a judge, of course, because a judge wouldn't really do that. I was already told that if I don't take down all of my videos on YouTube, that I will be sued for slander and defamation. No slander, no defamation, no names used. I'm not taking them down. This may help someone else, and it actually is helping me. Anyway, I've come to terms mentally with what's happening to me. Oop, I lost my balance. But emotionally, it feels like dying. I'm having a hard time emotionally processing what's going on, because on the one hand, I miss her and want her back. On the other hand, I never want to experience the pain that I've experienced in my relationship again. Ever. Ever. I would rather remain single and celibate than ever experience that again. And that might prompt some very disagreeable behavior from some other people. But I don't care. If you have a problem with what I'm saying, maybe you're the reason that it's a problem. Just like, if what I say offends you, then instead of looking at what I say, look at what you're doing wrong. All I'm doing is offering a mirror. If I say that you've done something, and in your mind it makes you look bad, that just means you did something wrong. That's something that people need to learn. If something you did makes you look bad when it comes out of somebody else's mouth, then what you did was bad. Maybe that should be my response. Anyway, so several things that I'm trying to get my counselor to help me with. One is emotionally dealing with my divorce, because it's messing me up. It really is. While my mind knows one thing, my emotions say another. Another thing is helping me to isolate some things that I haven't really figured out how to deal with yet. Probably a couple years ago. Now, I ride a motorcycle. You've seen that in earlier videos, or one particular earlier video. But I ride a motorcycle, and I was at this intersection. There were vehicles next to me, including a white pickup truck. I look up at the red light, and it turns green. And just to be sure that I process that properly, ADHD, woohoo, I look over, and all the cars start going. I said, okay, so I did see that light turn green. Start crossing the intersection, get about halfway through, I look up, and the light's red. Well, that was awfully fast. I look to the left, because I was in the right lane. I look to the left. There are no cars next to me. I look back. All those cars I saw moving forward are still sitting there at the line. I hallucinated a green light. Cars moving and everything. All because of stress. Stress. Imagine being so stressed out you hallucinate. That was discouraging. And of course, an inability to control my emotions. Well, it's not so much that. I've got to have some help stabilizing my emotional load, which right now is extremely difficult. I'm one of those people who never really cried. I mean, whenever I was a kid, a teenager, whatever, if I get hurt bad enough, I cry, blah, blah, blah. But once I got into my later teen years, that just kind of stopped on its own. No mask. I wasn't trying to stop crying. It just never had a reason to cry. And then, over the last, 3 years, I cry at everything now, and I don't understand it. It actually scares me, because I cry at any display of intensity, emotional intensity at all. I mean, pain, anger, fear, love. And, for the average person, that would be seen as a sign of my emotions stabilizing. Well, now I can cry again. But even whenever I was a kid, if I cried because of emotional things, it was because of fear or anger. I never cried at other people's emotions. Not that I didn't feel them, but I can feel them. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming. But it's just, I didn't see why I should be crying. It didn't make sense to me that I would cry just because they're crying. So the need to cry didn't exist. At least, for other people's emotions. Now, just watching. I mean, I could see a picture of anguish. No sound, no movement, just a picture of anguish. And it'll bring me to tears. And it bothers me because that shows me a sign of emotional instability in myself. Because that's not normal for me. And it's really not super important what is normal for people. What's most important is what's normal for you. Now, of course, that's not entirely true because, like borderline personality disorder, that's not normal for people or me because it's a personality disorder. But, whenever your emotional stability or the state of your emotional stability changes unexpectedly or in ways you can't explain, that tends to get worrisome. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling again. Yeah, and something else that I'm hoping my counselor will be able to help me with is helping me to accept the way things are. Because I was married for 16 years. And I poured myself into that relationship. Yeah, I made stupid decisions. I made mistakes. And there were more than a handful of times that I let my temper get a hold of me or get the best of me, and where my pathological demand avoidance, comorbidity of ADHD, or symptom rather, where that made me act in ways that were very toxic. But I sacrificed a lot. I lost count of how many times I almost died just from overwork. How many times I almost died because of stress alone. How much pain I endured just to make sure that there was enough money in the house to make people happy. The disappointment of, well, I don't want to go into that. Anyway, I poured myself into that relationship. So as you can imagine, doing that, I also lost myself in that relationship. When that relationship ended, there wasn't anything left of me. I would like to reclaim myself. Back before I gained all this weight, I was a skater. I know I said that in an earlier video. I was a skater. I loved walking. I mean, I'm walking right now. I loved walking. Riding my bicycle. I would draw a dozen pictures a day. I love to draw. I love writing. Writing, as in books and stuff. Short stories are fun. I mean, video games, music. I actually like working on cars, as long as I don't have to. If it's an option, I love it. If I have to, I hate it. I'm probably more of that PDA. I lost all that. I got to the point where I started hating the things that I always loved. And even now, I'll start doing something that I always loved to do. And it's just another thing I'm doing. I'm not connecting to it anymore. And I really, really want to get myself back. So, yeah. Those are the things that I want my therapist to help me with, my counselor to help me with. And I've expressed those concerns. The things that she tells me she wants to work on first are the PTSD and the severe depression. Because both of those can lead to self-termination. I don't know what YouTube censors or what they allow to be heard. You know, I'm used to dealing with Facebook, and they'll censor everything. You can say poopy face, and they'll censor that. Anyway, severe depression and PTSD, chronic PTSD, as in lifelong series of trauma. You know, something that I keep asking myself is why? I mean, I know Job asked God the same question, and God basically said, "Who on earth are you to question me? I created everything, including you. So why in the world would you question me?" Basically, where were you when I hung the stars in the sky? Where were you when I told the oceans how far they could go? When I told the trees where they could stand, and so on. You know, basically saying, this universe wouldn't even exist if I hadn't set it in place. Who are you to question me? And it's true. I mean, that particular instance might make a whole lot of people mad, thinking, oh, well, you know, it's an egotistical God. I'm sorry, but if you literally speak a universe into existence, you have the right to do whatever you want. And if you have a problem with God because he says, I'm the one that decides the course of existence, not you, well, then follow whatever path you think you can follow. And then whatever happens at the end of time, those are the consequences you deal with. I'm not worried about it. But I keep asking myself, why? Why did a boy in elementary school have to deal with so much rejection, pain, hatred, and disgust from other people? You realize my teachers told my classmates that I was mentally retarded? Because of ADHD. Of course, yeah, that was in the 90s, but they knew it was ADHD and not mental retardation. I don't understand why or how an adult can do that to a boy, a little kid. You know, we're talking about someone who's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. If you have kids that are 10 years or younger, imagine how you'd feel if you found out that your kid's teacher or teachers was telling his classmates that he's mentally retarded, all because he doesn't act the same as everyone else. When I got married, I finally found, I thought that I'd finally found the one person that would not treat me the same as everyone else. Without going into too much detail, just keep in mind that I'm living alone in a camper on my parents' property at almost 40 years old. That is not to minimize all of the things that I did wrong, because yes, I did do a lot of stuff that was really, really stupid and hurtful. But the things that I felt I needed in a relationship, the things that I craved from the people I loved, person I loved, instead of receiving those things consistently, I received them sometimes. And then I received the things that I always have, most of the time. And to those who claim that I'm slandering my wife's name, first of all, I haven't said her name in this video. And second, that's called guilt. Because it's something I say, again, it's something I say makes you angry at me. That's your sign that you're guilty of it. How about instead of trying to save face, fix the problem? Anyway, enough about that. Moving forward, I did ask, well, I wasn't quite so polite. I did demand half of her income tax return, which amounts to just over $6,000. Okay? That sounds pretty cruel, but I demanded that in place of half of the shared estate, which amounts to somewhere around $100,000. Yeah, I was working hard for those 16 years, even if I didn't get credit for it. So anyway, I am being called very ugly names because I demanded that instead of half of $100,000. Which I wouldn't quite get half because that house had 3 owners on it. My wife, myself, and her mother. Kind of thought it was suspicious whenever all that went down. Whenever there were no efforts made to take her name off the deed whenever the house was paid for. But now it doesn't matter. Now I know why. Anyway, so I didn't ask for that $6,000, just over $6,000 for nothing. I wasn't just to get at her. If I wanted to do that, I'd take half of everything. No, I have very specific reasons. Because with that $6,000, I can pay off my bikes, which will eliminate almost $400 a month worth of monthly payments, and allow me to utilize more of that money for rebuilding my life and paying child support. I know it's coming. She told me that she doesn't want to put child support on me, but the courts aren't going to give her that decision. The question they're going to ask is, how involved in the kids' lives does she want me? The more involved I get, which is backwards, the more involved I get, the more child support I pay. Technically speaking. Well, no, I've got that backwards. No, the more involved I get, the less I pay. I'd love to be 100% involved in their lives, but that choice was taken from me. So the most I get is probably 50%. But since she told me she wants supervised visitations, that's going to severely limit how involved in the kids' lives that I am, which is going to increase how much child support that I end up paying. In Texas, the very bare minimum is 20% for the first child, an additional 5% for each child after that. I have 4 kids. That's 35% of my income. Basic. Okay? If she gets supervised visitation, I will be paying more than that because I will be less involved in the kids' lives. Well, of course, after me telling her that I want $6,000, she's gonna do that. And all this because I had originally told her that I wasn't going to take anything. But there were some things that I didn't know, that I know now. Things that I didn't understand, that I understand now. So, $6,000, just a little over. Anyway, pay off my bikes so I can make sure that I can see my kids. That'll hopefully give me more money for maintenance on my bikes and rebuilding my life, to include building some sort of house somewhere. I have ideas. I stated it in an earlier video. Little plot at the back of my parents' property in the middle of the woods. Just build a little cabin. Do as much disappearing as I can. Anyway, don't really know what else I can say for all of this. I'm going to keep trying to move forward, and I'm going to try and do a better job of not talking about my ending relationship. Anyway, I guess I'll talk to you all later.